Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 320. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, what's up?
And someday the old joke, "Who's Connor?" It's starting to feel more and more relevant to to the current episodes.
Connor's the name of that cat, right?
I would
Right
not.
there?
I would not dare insult my cat by giving him that name.
I saw a TikTok that says orange cats are more affectionate. Was that a joke, or they were just talking about their cat, or is this something that you have found?
I'd say they're all affectionate, just in different ways. Firefly is definitely the one who comes up when I'm sitting in this chair the most often, but Wesker snuggles on the couch and in the bed.
Yeah.
Garrus jumps up quite often. I don't know, all my cats are pretty
Okay. Yeah, I
sociable.
saw a thing where they're talking about how orange cats are more affectionate. So if you're going to get one, keep that in mind, that they always want to be around you, and they're always rubbing up against you. And I've never had an orange cat, so I don't know.
I feel like just part of it, so especially if you have them from a kitten, if you just depending on how you treat them as they're growing up, I feel like you'll encourage that behavior. So
that makes sense.
I feel like I have done. As I look over at Garrus, just sort of giving me that kind of like half asleep, but keep an eye on me, like, what are you doing, human? Don't you disturb me.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a DC Comics podcast, believe it or not, everyone. We get together, we talk about the comics we read this week. Coming up on this week's show, we will be discussing Detective Comics 1063, Action Comics 1046, Robin issue 17, The Swamp Thing issue 16, the final issue of that, might I add, Task Force Z issue 11, and Tales from the Human Target issue 1, which is the sort of the one shot in between the break. It's kind of weird though that they waited till the month before it comes back to release this, but oh, oops, Daisy. That's all.
Really, I'm just happy to have it, right? Like, it was nice to join that world again. So
yeah. Oh yeah, because obviously it's been a few months, and it's like, I was like, oh yeah, it's been a while since the last one, so it was nice to sort of dive a little bit back into it as a little taster before we get back to the proper stuff. But yeah, those are the books that we'll be talking about over the course of the episode, so hopefully you will enjoy some of those. You know, I was thinking as I was putting my list of books together, there was a time on this show, and it was because there was less DC books that were interesting, and we don't have that problem right now. There's plenty of good DC books every week, but there was a time where it was like, oh, should this show become less of specifically just being DC and sort of filter in some other books that we just want to talk about because they're interesting. And I'd forgotten about it. And there's not anything I actually want to necessarily talk about right now because I've not really been keeping up with anything else. But the thought went into my mind that it was It was back when see before they shook everything up with Future State, I want to say. There was a period where it felt like a lot of the books we liked had ended. Yeah.
And we were just kind of there, and we're like, DC.
Yeah, we were kind of waiting on interesting things happening. Maybe it'll happen one day. I don't know. The thought had occurred to me again for whatever reason.
I get so invested into the DC comics, as right now I have less time than I ever had to sit and read.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And so DC takes up a good chunk, and like I'm still behind on Chip's Daredevil, which I started going to. But,
yeah, that for example would probably be one of the few. But admittedly, I'm like, I'm like 30 issues behind on it at this point. Yeah. So I mean,
I'm almost done with the second trade. And every time I go to read it, I pass out in bed, just because by the time I have time to read, it's time for bed. But I don't keep up. I'm not very good right now at keeping up on other companies.
Well, the show helps with that though, because I mean, at least with DC, because like you have this reason to read them by a certain time in the week,
right? And there's certain things that like when I went to Twitter this week and was like, man, I really need Ram V and Tom King to stop writing really good books with really great artists, like, because we're spoiled right now, and I don't see too many, like so like Marvel or Image or other companies might have the same problem. I would know because I'm over here in my little DC section. So, but yeah, no, I wish I knew what was going on over there. I really do.
It's I don't know. I think the downside to it would be that some of the books that are kind of like not great, but we're happy enough reading them, would probably not make the cut anymore because we'd rather read the best books from somewhere else instead. Which is probably why fans of the show would hate it, because they want the weird DC stuff being read. That's part of the appeal, I assume.
You know, I just said that, but then I did do a Powerbomb #1, and I have 2 and 3 to read. But I did read that. I'm gonna read Dark Ride as it comes out, the new Williamson book, which is fusing 2 of my favorite things, horror and theme parks. So that makes sense. I'm catching up on Department of Truth. I have the 3rd trade. But yeah, I just, over at Marvel, there's nothing like, I was reading Captain America when, who was writing that?
Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Yeah, I was reading that, and then I got behind. I was reading Avengers, and I got behind because I love Jason Aaron. I got to this Khonshu arc, and it got really crazy, and I haven't gone back. Like, I have the issues. I still need to finish Immortal Hulk, because as I was watching She-Hulk, I was explaining things to my wife about the Hulk that they did there to make him more scary. And I was like, oh yeah, that was such a good book. But yeah, and I feel like that was at that time that you were just talking about, that we were looking for other things because DC really wasn't hitting on all cylinders for us.
I suppose that's the other point, is that there was a good handful of books from elsewhere that were interesting and seemed like worth talking about, but I don't know, the thought just popped out of my head. We actually don't have that problem right now, because mainly thanks to King, Taylor. Yeah, and then throw in Johnson.
Those are the main ones that come up for me, are those 3 guys. Like, no matter what at this point, like, you know, I can't think of the last time I really didn't like a Tom King book, and I don't think I've ever ran into a Taylor book that's underwhelmed.
Well, Batman Catwoman got a bit murky, but
yeah, but at the same time, I'm glad I read it. You know, like, the art was a little bit off, but the writing in of itself was, you know, decent. But yeah, and with Ram V, he's been everything I've read from him at DC. In fact, I should follow up, because I ordered The Savage Shores from my comic shop, and it never came in. So I gotta see if they've ever followed up on that. But yeah, no, he's really, really, like, it's a good time right now at DC, and like you said, Johns is on the horizon with some JSA
of course,
stuff.
Yeah, that weird like thing coming in. But hey, yeah. Well, just a food for thought. If people like the idea of us tacking on 1 or 2 books that aren't DC, if we happen to care about them enough to want to keep talking about them, then give us your feedback. I'd be curious to hear it. It's the sort of thing where if there's like a really quiet week from DC, like, you know, sometimes they imbalance the month where all the books are on 3 weeks, and then there's that 1 week that's got like 3 books. It's a sort of thing where, like, the few other books that we might talk about, we could all put in that week, you know, regardless of when they came out. We'll just do them on that week, because, you know,
that's the quiet week.
Yeah, makes sense. But anywho, hey Matt, what's your favorite lyrics in the Spice Girls?
When 2 become 1. I was ready this week. I was ready to subvert things this week.
You went and looked up other Spice Girl lyrics just so you...
that was the one I remembered off the top of my head, but I knew you were going to do this. So...
there's always time for a ComiXology top 10. Now, you may remember last week there was some confusion and some controversy because DC seemed to be absent from the top 10 of ComiXology. It appeared to be that way again this week. However, I took some time before we started the show to actually look at it properly, and I have seen what has happened here. They've changed slightly how they do this. They now separate the releases by the day they came out. So what's happening now is that DC is ranked by sales, but it's ranked on its own for the Tuesday, because they all come out on Tuesday as opposed to Wednesday when every other comic comes out. So it means that from now on, the ComiXology top 10 will just be the top 10 DC books of the week.
This segment, Pete, that's the universe telling you to stop. That's what I'm just saying.
Hey, technically, this makes it more relevant to the show. Although it was fun.
But it's not the top 10 overall.
I know, but that's sure. It's not as fun to compare it and see, like, you know, how it's doing against Marvel for the week, but you know.
So you can't pull Wednesdays to see what it is.
Well, I can look at Wednesdays well separately, but it doesn't include DC's books. You know, they're the split. It's like 2 separate charts.
Ay.
So anyway, DC top books of ComiXology.
All right, well, I'm just gonna select all for DC.
What do you think
See
number
if
one
I can
is?
get the order right. All right. You want me to guess?
Go on, guess. Number one.
Detective Comics 1063.
You would be right. I'm not giving you too many points because it's a Batman book. I'm not.
Yeah.
You're not getting that much praise for it.
Well, I don't have to guess X-Men or Spider-Man anymore either,
That's
so it's
true.
really illogical.
It's Batman or event book probably most weeks. You would think. But yeah, Detective 1063 is number one. Number two. I don't know if you'll get number two. Give it a try.
If you think that, is it something that we don't read on a regular?
It is something we're not talking about today.
Yep, so it's going to be Harley Quinn 21.
It is Justice League versus Legion of Superheroes issue 5.
I was so confident. Dang, hey, good for the Legion. They need that.
Number 3 is Action Comics 1046. Number 4 is The Tales of the Human Target issue 1.
Hey.
No, so it's nice that as well. Number 5 is Batman White Knight Presents Red Hood. Number 6 is Robin issue 17, which I completely forgot was going to be the final issue of this run when I was getting to today. Yeah. So more on that in a little bit later. Number 7 is Olympus Rebirth issue 1. Number 8 is Batman Fortress issue 4. So a Batman book only making it to number 8 in a DC only list is pretty damning, I would say.
Yeah.
So clearly that's not doing too hot. Fables 154 comes in at number 9. And then number 10 is Task Force Z issue 11. Just missing out in the DC top 10 is Swamp Thing issue 16. So I'm a little sad that that's not doing better, but I assume it's going to do well in trade, if nothing else.
Yeah, I do feel like people thought like, oh, I'll just get this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, and then it's all just the DC book, so it's really quickly to just say 12 is Deathstroke Inc., 13 is the Critical Role book, The Mighty Nine. So that's a trade. Number 14 is the Harley Quinn, which I would expect that to do better than that, but that's maybe Harley Quinn fans like their variants and they'll buy physically. Maybe that's what that is. Number 15 is DC Mech for the week, so not too hot. But there you go. That's the DC books for the week. And just in case you are remotely curious, I'll give you highlights of the Wednesday numbers. Axe Judgment Day, number 1. Amazing Spider-Man comes out at number 2. Marauders, number 3. Fantastic Four, number 4. Avengers Forever at number 5. What's this? Defenders Beyond, issue 2. And then you got
What is that?
Darth Vader comes in at number 7. Damage Control, number 1 at number 8. Captain America, Symbol of Truth, is that? I don't even know what this is. Issue 4. Yeah, Symbol of Truth. It's a Falcon Cap book, the looks of it.
Gotcha.
And then number 10 on the Wednesday chart is Minor Threats, issue 1.
Oh, that's the Patton Oswalt book.
Oh,
I see him putting over on Twitter a lot, which I didn't realize came out this week.
You know what's interesting about this is that by separating DC, it means the Wednesday obviously is dominated by Marvel, but it gives a couple of indie books a chance to get in because DC's not there taking up numbers. So, curious. So, now you get 2 top 10s for the price of 1 in this segment every week.
This is the worst timeline. Is that an Image book, The Minor Threats? Because I might have to go back and get it.
It's a good question.
Let's see. No, it's not coming up on their list.
It doesn't look like Image from the cover. It looks like Dark Horse to me. Yeah, it's Dark Horse.
Sweet. I'm going to have to go.
Yeah, it's interesting. And what's funny is I could have always filtered out the publishers to just get Marvel or DC before, but now it's forcing me to do it. I like them having been mixed, but now this is the only options I've got. So this is what you get, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you get.
We're so lucky.
You are lucky. You don't know how good you've got it, Matt.
Sure. I do know I'm not as lucky that we were planning on going to the movies last night, yet there was 4 showings of the movie we wanted to see. So we just went to dinner and came home. But yeah.
What movie did you want to see?
We're going to see Bodies, because we like to go see horror movies in the theater. and not the theater that we have close to us didn't have a showing. The next closest didn't have them until like super late, and I get up at 4 for work, so I wasn't going to a 10:35 movie, especially for a Pete Davidson vehicle. Like I'll go at 6 o'clock after dinner and be happy with it. But yeah, pretty disappointed. But I'm sure that I'll watch fine at home when it hits. But horror movies are fun. It was like we went and saw Happy Death Day on a whim, and that's some of the most fun I had in the theater. So, but yeah.
I like how you say that casually, like it's not a 5-year-old story.
No, I know, but still, like it was. It's not something like we were eagerly waiting. It was like, hey, you want to go to the movies for a date night? I'm like, sure, and it's made things fun. I think I'm gonna have her watch X, but I'm waiting for closer to the spooky season.
Have you seen X?
Yeah, oh yeah, I went to the movie theater to see it, and sat next to an old couple that got into a fight because when things got steamy, my wife got upset. So great.
Did they not look at the synopsis?
I don't believe they did, but me and my brother were very uncomfortable with this old man because the wife got up and left.
I mean,
so,
the premise of the movie is a group of young people are making a porno. Yep. Like, you have to expect a certain level
that was up there when I went to go see the 300 sequel, and when the sex scene started, the old lady got up and her husband didn't want to leave and she yelled at him, and I don't think I've laughed that hard at something like that in a very long time, because it was something almost out of a sitcom. Like, you couldn't have booked it better. So
old man's like, sit down, Deidre, I can't stand up right now.
Exactly.
The old bones come back to life.
I only have enough blood to run one. Yeah, it was so funny. But yeah, no. The spooky season's upon us. My niece is old enough that we're gonna have her come over and start her with some entry level stuff.
There was a lot of horror news this week, actually.
There was.
We got a date for the new Hellraiser, it's early October. The Evil Dead movie that was going to just be on HBO Max is now getting a theatrical release next spring. Yep. So that's cool.
I mean, I was looking forward to that either way. So theater should be fun because I've never seen an Evil Dead in the theater. So that should be cool.
Yeah, well, given what happened to Batgirl, there was a chance that Aslov might axe it, so I think everyone's just relieved that there's a plan for it.
Yeah.
So.
And then so I'm wearing a Friday the 13th themed shirt. We went to go get donuts this morning. Guy at the donut shop was like, "Oh, did you hear the news about the 13th movie?" And I had not, because the last thing I had heard was, Sean Cunningham and the writer were still arguing over rights, but it seems they came to a deal, and there might be, there's more momentum now than there's been in a long time.
The court case, the legal issues were solved earlier in the year, and just this past week there's been a couple of hints that maybe there's something brewing. I have to imagine that they see these new Halloween movies doing pretty well. They see a new Hellraiser coming out. They see new Texas Chainsaw Massacres coming out, and they think, oh, we need to get some more Jason out there. Why is there no Jason movies? So I imagine they're probably gagging to do one at this point. Yeah,
so whatever it is, I'm going to like it. So just to go see it in the theater. I say that, but when there's really only 2 Friday the 13th, I don't enjoy. So,
do you know, Matt? It's been now 13 years, funnily enough, since the last Friday the 13th movie, which is the longest gap that this franchise has ever had between movies.
And it almost would work out to their favor, because it'd be 13 years until 13.
Well, nah, because by the time it comes out, it'll be at least 14 now.
That's true, because they have to hold to it. But yeah, dang, that's a lot of time. What? Because there's not even that many gaps in Halloween, right? Like,
Halloween has some sort of like clear gaps between like sections, but none of them are that big. Because because they basically went straight from 6 to the sort of the reboot time, or the reboot sequel timeline of H2O, and that was only a couple of years. That was 95 to 98, so there's barely nothing in that. There's a bit of a gap between Resurrection, which kind of ended that run, and then the remakes, which was 2002 to 2007, so 5 years between those. And then you get the second Rob Zombie movie, which obviously killed the franchise for a bit. Toxic. And that was 2009, so that was the biggest gap, was 2009 to 2018, which is when the start of this newer trilogy was coming out. Which that new movie, Halloween Ends, has a horrible poster of Michael and Laurie standing back to back. It is the dumbest shit.
I believe Tim called it Halloween Friends, and I can't unsee it now.
All I could see was the Iron Man 2 poster of Iron Man and War Machine standing back to back.
Yeah.
That's all I could see.
Yeah. Look, I've come to terms with this new trilogy being trash, and that's what makes it enjoyable, because they're not good, but I don't hate watching them. They're not like, they're kind of fun bad at this point. I
don't know about the first one, but Halloween Kills did cross a line into this is so bad and hilarious that there's something to actually kind of get out of this.
I after you showed me, or Tim showed me, it might have been both of you, the Iron Lady. I've been showing everybody that will listen. So like my new coworker's really into horror movies too, and I told him about the Iron Lady. He goes, no. So I pulled up a picture. He goes, oh, I'm going home and watching this and looking for her now. So yeah, man. So if this one's at least like, I want them to be good because it's Halloween, but at the end of the day, as long as it's entertaining, that's all I need. You know, I'm not that pretentious when it comes to things. But I'll be at the theater for Ends, good or bad.
Yeah, yes, I don't know. I'm not excited about it, but I'm hoping it's at least as funny as the last one was.
What's that called when you're like, you're not excited, but it's like, I don't know.
Morbid curiosity?
That might be it. Because I gotta know, because I know there's a time jump. With the way the last one ended, I have so many questions on how this time jump's gonna work. But yeah, and Jamie Lee's out there saying some crazy stuff too, which I think she's trolling at this point. Like, she has to be self-aware enough. But yeah,
I don't know. She's just looking at the paycheck she got for coming back again.
Yeah, I mean, and hey, please use the John Carpenter method, which is my favorite thing, where he goes, add another zero and we have a deal. You know. So.
There is.
Go
I
ahead.
was going to say there is actually some DC movie news this week that's worth mentioning to keep something somewhat on topic here. So they finally announced the delays. We were expecting delays for Aquaman 2 and Shazam 2. They've finally done it, where Shazam, which was going to be Christmas, it was opening the same week as Avatar 2, which they were always going to move from. Regardless of anything, they were always going to move from that week. But that's now going to be, I think, March next year, and Aquaman 2 is now Christmas next year. So they've been pushed back. But what's more fascinating, and forgive me, for those of you who listen or watch the Almost Cancelled news podcast, which I do with Connor, it's up early on Patreon. Yeah, good question. So that's already up on Patreon when we record this. It goes out. It actually goes out the same day as the Comics podcast, funnily enough. But we talked about this because it tied out some TV news. But what's interesting is part of the reason for these delays is that Warner Brothers Discovery can only afford to market so many movies this year. So now it's just Black Adam and that Olivia Wilde movie, which has got a bunch of controversy as well.
Explain to me the controversy there. Is it the Florence Pugh stuff?
Yeah, it's Florence Pugh who doesn't want to market it. Chloe's not had a good time on it. There's a whole thing where Shia LaBeouf was in the movie and then left, and Olivia tried to beg it to come back, and the video of her doing that was a bit dismissive of Florence Pugh, so she came off looking a bit shitty.
Look, anyone that broke Jason Sudeikis' heart just already started in a hole for me, all right?
Yeah, so I don't know. But between that movie and The Flash, which is its own can of worms, to be a fly in the wall of the decisions room of Warner Brothers Discovery right now.
I don't know if this would be considered an unpopular opinion, but I would gladly trade both Aquaman 2 and The Flash for Batgirl. Right now, done. Wipe the two.
I don't know if that's important. I mean, I think because of what Ezra Miller's been doing, I don't think anyone's going to argue about The Flash so much, but I think Aquaman 2, you may get some resistance from fans of that, I guess.
Look, I like Momoa enough. That first Aquaman movie was fine. but you're talking about a whole year that it's being shelved. Like it, I I, I have a hard time believing that it's going to be as relevant. Like it's just going to feel like this. I don't know.
It's at the
What's
point. It's at the
word?
point where James Wan's probably going to have another horror movie done
Yeah,
and out by the time that comes out.
yeah. What was his last one? That was so insane. Malignant.
Malignant, yeah.
Yeah, he'll have Malignant 3 out by that point.
Oh, dude. Oh, that was the other horror news this week. The Nun 2 is got a release date next year.
Oh my God! Stop. My wife, even though we know they're not good, my wife's really into the Conjuring verse to watch, and it's just diminishing returns at this point.
I mean, the first two Conjurings are good.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
Well, and I liked Annabelle Comes Home just as a fun little.
I mean, that was the best of the rest of them, but it's still there's a bit of a jump.
There's a dearth. Yeah, there's huge. Like Curse of La Llorona, not like boring. Like
yeah, oh, guess who's directing the Nun 2?
Is it the Curse of La Llorona guy?
Yeah, it is indeed. Yeah.
There you go. Who's one of James Wan's guys, right? Like he wrote a couple of them, right? Like he wrote Annabelle. I can't remember, but yeah. I mean, will I sit here and watch it from my couch? Probably. We don't necessarily go out to the theaters to see those ones. The Nun messed me up from Conjuring 2. Just the image of her. I didn't like seeing it, so we didn't go see that at the movies. We watched it here. So I'll probably watch The Nun 2 here too. But yeah, I can't. Like you said, Juan could have like 2 movies come out from then by the time this Aquaman comes out. And that's nothing against his skill or the performances, but it's just, I don't know. I'm just not as excited. And I love the property of Aquaman, like the character. Like, I defend him all the time. It's just hard to get excited for that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, the only DC movie I'm kind of even remotely excited about is the Batman 2, just because the first one was actually that damn good. That and Matt Reeves is such a great director, but that's why I'm excited for that to eventually come
it's
out.
Not Batman, it's more Matt Reeves, right?
Yeah.
Like,
but everything else is just in a bit of a, it's up in flames at this point. Like,
yeah, well, it seems like things are changing. It looks like they're hiring someone new for the position to kind of oversee that section of movies. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see a new slate pop up. But I don't know. Black Adam doesn't make me feel great just based off the trailers. So
I'm pretty sure if they announced a slate of movies, I wouldn't believe them. I'd be like, no, I don't believe a word of this until you actually put movies in my lap, because you've done this before.
So one of the guys I follow, he goes by Comic Steve. He's a huge Aquaman fan. He pointed out that Peacemaker, this show, is the most expansive DC universe thing because of all the characters it references and just talks about. And you got to think that's James Gunn's involvement in his writing and him just throwing stuff out there.
Just him having fun, presumably.
Yeah, and I know he has Guardians 3 in the works or whatever, but I wonder if they kind of bring him in as a consultant to try to redo. Because, Peacemaker, both fans and critics enjoy it. I still haven't finished it. I need to restart it. It's been a minute. But I just wonder if you let him kind of, because we enjoyed the Suicide Squad. Like it felt
it was solid
in the DC universe. He has a voice and an eye for these kind of things. And I don't need him writing and directing a bunch of stuff, but if you kind of bring him as a consultant and try to make things work, I think DC's in a better place than it has been in years with his help. But who knows what he's going to do? I mean, really the only reason he got to do the Suicide Squad was because of a kerfuffle over at the other company. So.
Yeah. Oh, this is DC related, actually. A bit of interesting trivia from this week. Did you see the stories about how Neil Gaiman once nuked a Sandman movie?
Yeah, and I'll let you tell the people because I immediately thought of you.
Yes.
When I read the story, I immediately thought of Pete. So yeah.
So yeah, this is obviously DC related because it's Sandman, which is Vertigo and all that. But so there was a script for a Sandman movie that Neil Gaiman himself leaked it online to make sure it can never happen because it was terrible. But that's not the part that made myself laugh, and presumably what made Matt laugh, and I know made Connor laugh, is that it turned out the person behind this script was none other than producer John Peters. Who is John Peters, you might ask? Well, if you've ever seen The Death of Superman Lives, the documentary about the Superman Tim Burton movie that never happened but was going to with Nicolas Cage and all that, John Peters was the producer on that. So there was this wacky thing when Gaiman's guessing or saying all these things about how terrible the script was. There happened to be an excerpt of one of his quotes that mentions something that John Peters put in the script. And if you know John Peters, you can probably guess what it is. But for anyone who doesn't know, that is giant mechanical spiders. He wanted giant alien spiders in the Superman movie. He eventually got a giant mechanical spider in another film he produced, Wild Wild West, if you've seen that gem. That's his thing. That's his fetish. I don't know what it is, but...
So all I read in the headline was giant mechanical spiders and Gaiman saying no. And I go, I bet you this is the Superman Lives guy. And boom, there it was. And I was like, oh my God, Pete's going to have a field day with this one.
I had a good chuckle to myself that, like, I mean, I don't know if I don't think I ever read exactly when all this happened, but I'm assuming it was around that same era where he was trying to get spiders and everything.
You got to think too that if it was, if he leaked it online, it had to have been in like at least the early 2000s.
I mean, the internet existed in the late 90s,
right? But enough for Gaiman to be like, hey, if I put this on the internet, it'll be enough to stop it. Because I know Ain't It Cool News has been around since like 98, but it didn't have the presence until the early 2000s, I think. Like I'm talking like 2000, 2001-ish. Yeah. Because I know that's when all the Star Wars stuff was kind of going around after Phantom Menace in 99. So, but yeah, oh my God, giant mechanical spider and Sandman. Which have you watched any of the Netflix Sandman?
Nah.
Yeah, I've heard it's very, very good, and I plan to, but there's so much, man. I'm starting Saul, so I can
good.
Now that it's over.
High priority.
Yep. So I have to do that. I just have to find time again. I did tell my wife, get ready, because I've almost been spoiled by a couple things about the ending, just by accident, and I need to get it done. So I go, don't get upset that we're gonna be watching a lot of Saul soon. But yeah, so I'm excited for that. Where was I going with this? Oh, Sandman. I just heard it's very good, and as a DC fan, I've never read anything outside of the Tynan, so I kind of want to use this as a kind of entryway, but nothing but praise. So,
yeah, I read the first collection, a few years back. Every month, for those who don't know, I review TV shows on Melfuzz TV YouTube channel. Occasionally Connor's on there as well. He used to be on all the TV reviews before his schedule changed, but every month there's a vote for which pilots to prioritize, and Sandman shockingly did not make the cut.
Bro, I didn't even realize it was up until I saw people we have I think he's a mutual friend, Andrew Stalo. He was talking about it online because he's a huge Sandman guy, and how happy he was. And I was like, oh man, that's already out. And then of course Alden started talking about it. And I was like, okay, I need to maybe mute some words here. And then nothing else came from it. It's the only two people. Then I saw Patton Oswalt again talking about, because he voices Matthew the Raven. Talking about how fun it was to work with Neil and whatever. So, yeah, man, what over prioritized Sandman? Like, what did people have you watch that was up against?
So they made what did I watch this month? She-Hulk.
Okay.
Did that pilot. I did 5 Days at Memorial, which is an Apple show.
Okay.
Starring Vera Farmiga. Linking back to our Conjuring conversation. So there you go. It's all connected.
Well, I like her a lot. I watched the first season of Bates Motel. She was very good. Mm-hmm. So. And
I'm going to be doing The Patient next week. I can't remember what network or what streaming service that's on, but maybe Hulu.
Yeah, there's just too much. Well, people, if you really want to make Pete upset, you should make him watch House of Dragons.
Oh, it's too late for that. That didn't make the cut. I was delighted that didn't make the cut. Best result I've ever had is not forcing me to watch that.
Is The Patient the Steve Carell one?
I think so. Yeah. It's kind of a.
Yeah, it's on Hulu.
Yeah. I don't even remember the premise now. When I'm making these votes for the following month, I look at all the trailers and
Right.
put the post up and all that. But I know the vote that's up right now in the voting tier for next month has Andor in it, has the Lord of the Rings show in it. Neither of which I want to watch. So
I mean, I know which one I'll go with over. But yeah.
And there's a couple others. I can't remember what the other ones were.
I brought up my friend Alden. I don't know how he has all the time to get into the epic battles he does online. And I just see him arguing with people over the Lord of the Rings stuff. And I'm just like, bro, stupid people are going to be stupid, man. Like, I'm not arguing with a stranger over elves, all right? I'll argue over superheroes and wrestling any day of the week. But I draw the line at elves.
Yeah.
And I don't understand the controversy around Lord of the Rings, nor do I care. And Lord of the Rings is up there with Star Trek, where I'm like, I'm glad you guys like it. I'm going to be over here, all right? Like, you all have fun. Play your game. I'm fine. So...
You're frozen for some reason. I don't know what's going on. No, but you look.
Am I back?
I can still hear you, but there you are.
Okay.
The video's. There you go. You're moving again.
There you go. Yeah. It's you know what it was. It's the magic from Middle Earth coming to tell me to shut it.
Yes. And hey, don't worry, Matt. This week, your favorite wrestler is now in line with King Kong. They both get jobbed out by a superior opponent, and that's all right.
I'm okay. I mean, did you check on me on Wednesday? Yeah. Was I okay then? No. Did I lie about it? Yes.
Oh dear. Anyway.
That's okay though. I got to see DMD, so it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
See, all I'm seeing is that little cartoon of the dog and the house on fire saying it's fine. That's what I'm getting from you. That's the energy I'm getting from you right now.
We were talking about what could have happened. Never in my mind there was a 3-minute match. Never. I was like, oh, it'll be, even if Mox wins, it'll be a 20-minute classic. No.
Delightful.
That said, though, that main event, though.
Oh yeah.
That Will Ospreay kid's real good.
Yes, I feel like wrestling is probably one of the most alienating things we can talk about, though. So I'm going to move swiftly on, and it's probably time to start diving into the comics.
Seems like a good idea.
Themselves. Yes. As you can tell, there was not really any news this week, so you got some waffling about horror movies and whatever else,
and DC TV shows and movies, and you go to this week's comics. There we go.
It's a good idea.
Well, while we were talking, I was looking up covers, so I'll be ready to go then. Which you can do when I talk about Task Force Z.
Yes. Which I didn't get around to reading this week, so that gives me time.
Yep.
Gives me time. All right. Let's get into the books. Detective Comics 1063, Ram V, writing Rafael Albuquerque. On the art. So obviously we're still just getting to grips with this new run, this new arc, and some of these new characters that Tynion's introducing. There's a framing device here of sorts with Bruce coming to see Harvey Dent, who's, he's feeling better. He's not feeling two-faced. Obviously he still has the physical scars, but
yeah.
He's claiming not to be involved in anything. Bruce is trying to see who's making a power play in Gotham and the underworld, because someone's making moves. We've seen it. It's people representing this family who are on their way to Gotham, and we get into a bit more of that, and more definitively, we get this realization that one of their ancestors who was living in Gotham changed his name to Arkham, and Amadeus Arkham's a descendant of that person when he created the asylum. And part of why they're coming is because while the Arkham Asylum's under this bastard name, as they call it, they want to come and not let their family's memory drift into, nothing, and sort of reclaim. So all these moves they're making is about, putting their family name and being a force to reckon with.
To reckon with in Gotham, because when Gotham was just yet a small town, they made a deal with the Orgums, and in that there was a lot of land that was dealt to the Orgum. So it feels like a power play for the city itself.
Absolutely, yeah.
That they feel entitled to. And I love all of this like anytime they do the history of Gotham or Metropolis, because even Fraction did this in the Jimmy Olsen book. I just like how it twists stuff that we already thought we knew, right? And so we thought we knew about the Arkhams and how they dealt with the, with the Waynes and the Canes and how that all fit in. But just the fact that they were this, older family with seeming like dark secrets from Europe, that came to settle in Gotham, almost like Gotham called to them, is really interesting.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it doesn't feel too shoehorned in or retconned because it's going so far back in the timeline, and it's this doesn't change who Amadeus Arkham was. I mean, Amadeus Arkham might not even have known about this, like these ancestors. This is like going further back and into things that aren't as relevant, but obviously this family remembers and want to come back and reclaim what's theirs.
It kind of reminds me of the Court of Owls, but without the weird secret society aspect. It's these people are kind of moving. They are in the shadows, but not like the Court of Owls was, right? Where they're a secret society, whereas these guys are, almost coming in like a new crime family. But I do get those vibes of there's a secret to Gotham, and they're gonna unveil it.
Yeah, and the people who Batman chases after a guy for answers, and this guy, effectively activates a suicide pill, but it disintegrates his body. He jumps off this bridge that they're fighting on, or not even fighting. He's just running from Batman, really.
Yeah.
But he says he's ashes before he even hits the ground. So, I really love the next page after that, which is like the club or the tavern, whatever it is, on fire, and like just the way that the orange flame sticks out against the green background. And I think my favorite thing about the last issue, and same again with this one, is just the atmosphere that it's got going. It really feels like a more gothic version of Gotham that we're dealing with. So
and
cool.
And it does feel different than the than the Gotham that Ram V wrote in Catwoman, right?
Yeah, it feels different to that.
He has shifted gears effectively. And it still has its own tone, which is cool.
Yeah. So Harvey kind of just convinces Bruce that he's kind of better now. He's got like a Phantom of the Opera style mask covering these, that half of his face, which is kind of a nice touch.
Yeah.
Especially given the themes of this being an opera style story that they're doing.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, we get to see in the boat with the family. A couple of interesting things here. So the woman here that's looking after the main dude, Azrin, right? So, or Arzin, sorry. Arzin like is asking questions, and she sort of explains some of this backstory we talked about. But what I thought was interesting is it's like she kind of, I don't know if she's like supernatural or like a computer, but the way her speech bubbles change, it's like she initiates like memory mode or something, and starts like giving out like encyclopedic knowledge. And I'm like, oh, what's with this? This seems interesting.
To me, I read it like she was in a trance. Like it clicked. So I definitely think I err more to supernatural, right? Like there's something about her that I'm sure is tied to Barbados.
It definitely feels supernatural, but I would describe, if I was trying to describe what it feels like, it's like in a robot movie where an android recites something and sort of like the eyes turn a different color because it's like just regurgitating like a speech or something. That's what it kind of felt like to me. But I assume the source of it's different than that.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is like I don't know if it's tied into the whole Barbados thing, because the vibe that I'm getting from this is that, from what we know from Metal and Death Metal, and Bruce being like this failed soldier of Barbados, do these people work with him or do they work against him? And now he's, that's why he wants Bruce, is to fight against these guys. And I like that mystery, because it's just, you get these glorious pages of bats and whatever, and just what that means to Gotham. And now you have these guys who helped start Gotham, but they've been removed from it. So
there's another interesting thing here we have to point out in this scene, is that Arzin kind of hulks out effectively. He gets angry and he grows bigger, and then like the servant dude like plays this music box which calms him down, and he kind of like becomes normal again. But we see that the railing on the boat is like crushed from his hand. So it's setting up that we've got like a super powered type villain here to deal with.
Crushed and smoking. So there's heat at play there too. Like he's a powerhouse for sure.
So yeah, we're teasing kind of what they're up to. Batman sneaks in to Blackgate to talk to the Maestro. Because he found the music box in the last issue and thinks that the Maestro might, have some insight, given that that's his expertise. So he comes here to play this, and he talks about black noise and how it's this sound, this harmonic sound that can be used to control people and convince people of things. To change whole societies is the phrase he uses specifically. So I think the idea of using frequencies to change people is going to be a part of this story. Anyway, again, the idea that this is an opera, where we're using music and sound as one of the themes on top of all the sort of very theatrical outfits and characters that are being introduced.
And it plays into that metal too, because that's eventually how they overcame it, right? It was the vibrational frequencies of the D and C chords, that were repeated.
I've forgotten that, but yeah, you're
right.
No,
that was a silly theme that I remember. So just the fact too that music ties back to the whole multiverse and the beginnings of all of this, I think is a really cool way to tell the story.
Yeah, and then it's when Batman's on his way back that he succumbs to pain and sort of crouches down, and we see Barbatos sort of monologuing above him, So soon the music. I was going to say this last part that he says here. Soon the music will end, and their lingering will be the yawning knell of my name. So, yeah, really cool looking pages. This is where Albuquerque shines the most, probably, is drawing Barbatos.
For sure. Well, and what I want to bring up too, this is all very operatic as well, right? It's he's doing this big, huge solo, if you will, to kind of press the story forward. In just like you said, the way that it's drawn, the framing of everything, the red background on the blue background, it just makes him pop, and he looks so scary. Like, this is the most monstrous I think I've seen Barbatos look. Or Barbatos. I'm trying to say it right. After the last time.
Yeah, Barbatos.
But yeah. As you pointed out, there's a bat in the middle there. So really trying to focus on that part.
Very big kind of theatrical operatic pages. Operatic, is that even a word?
Operatic, yeah.
So it sounds like a word. The ending of the issue is that Two-Face, Harvey Dent, is confronted with the guy who's been doing the bidding for the family, and is basically saying, "Oh, why?" Because he bumps into him, and Harvey says sorry, and he's like, "Wait, you're not the man you once were. You start with an apology like a weakling," and he hits him and basically gives him something, and intoxicates him with something.
Like a dust. It's a green mist.
Yeah, because he wants him to kind of be Two-Face again, effectively, but be Two-Face to do their bidding, to sort of be the face of like this underground movement, effectively.
Everything I know about Two-Face, though, is I don't think he's gonna go for this.
Well, it depends what this mist is doing to him, though, because it feels like it might be, taking over him or making him subservient or what. I think what's sad about this is that it kind of makes you feel bad for him, because it feels like he did actually was trying to be good and turn over this new leaf, and he's being forced back into it now.
Which always happens. Every time they heal Harvey, and this time they didn't heal him physically. It seems like whatever they did, it was the emotional and mental level, right? It helped him put that Harvey Two-Face persona behind him. And this seems to wake it back up, which is why I think is interesting here is, right, he ends up on the ground, and he talks about how, ancient beings of wrath and rage that answer my call, and how they're gonna, he's gonna bend to their will or they'll kill him. And then Harvey passes out, but then the Two-Face voice starts coming back in.
In the narration, it's almost like he was able to put that personality away, and this has brought it back out. But I mean,
right?
I don't know if like they just want him to cause chaos, or are they actually going to try and control him? But I thought this final moment though, where he's handing the rain with a coin next to his hand, as the Two-Face narration, the sort of the evil side of him's talking. like I thought it was a really effective ending because it started with like, you know, Bruce coming to talk to him and Harvey being like, yeah, I'm not into this anymore, I'm doing better. And it, you know, I thought Bruce saying, I'm glad you're feeling better, Harvey, as he leaves, kind of felt like a genuine moment. So this ending where he's forced seemingly back into being some kind of villain against his will is kind of heartbreaking.
Right. It was the choice was taken from him, which is Two-Face's all the character about choice, right? Well, seemingly choice when he flips the coin. And that's what I love at the end, where he tells him to put him back in the driver's seat.
Less choice and more chance, I would say.
Let's go with that. But let him put him back in the driver's seat, you know, or let's flip for it. And like that line right there, the let's flip for it while it ends on the hand with the coin. And the face side up. Notice it's the Harvey side, not the Two-Face side, right? I look at it because it's not scratched out. So, yeah, man, just storytelling being done in the art through there with the words.
Yeah, it's a simple little thing on that last panel as well is that because of the shadow of the hand, the coloring of that panel is kind of two-faced as well. Because on the right it's blue and it's black on the left. Yeah. It's very intentionally kind of mimicking Two-Face. Yeah. So, no, good stuff. The backup, which is Simon Spurrier and Danny on art. Gordon was looking for this, you know, runaway that this parent was looking for, and he finds like a machine in this like you know the kid in Arkham, and this SWAT team came in, and Gordon gets knocked out, and he wakes up, and all the SWAT team's been taken out. This kid seemingly has taken them all out, and they're all lying in their underwear in the rain, and then Gordon goes to the cemetery to look at James Jr.'s grave because it's the anniversary of his death, and this kid shows up and starts talking to him and is confused because wait, you're alive, why is your name on that? He's like, no, that's not me, that's my son, you know, yada yada. But there's a bit of a mystery here because the machine that he found wasn't there when the authorities went to check it. It's, you know, someone's covering something up here. He goes to Bullock, who's a PI now, and starts asking him questions about what's going on. So, yeah, it's interesting. The end of this backup is that the corrupt cop who gave Gordon this intel last issue shows up with a teenager who he probably just had in a cell this whole time, to be honest, you know? You know, and just in case I was confusing there, the kid that Gordon's talking to that he meets in Arkham is not the missing kid. There's some random, like, long-haired kid. This son who's returned to his mother at the end of the issue is the one that he was looking for. And this corrupt cop, though, he like puts a padlock on their door and then puts a notice on like the building saying notice of demolition. So I think he's trapped them in there so they'll be wiped out when demolition happens. Although I do suspect, like, are the demolition crew in this? Because I feel like they would notice someone banging on the door and screaming for help when they try and like take it down. But it ends on a bit of a cliffhanger because of that. I will admit, I did struggle at the start of this backup because I couldn't for the life of me remember what the last story was, and it just kind of came back to me a little bit as I was reading it. But no, the voice for Gordon and kind of the seedy mood that it's got is quite interesting. And I'm a little intrigued by the mystery, but we'll see.
I got half into this and I said I would go back and I forgot, so I just had to skim it. But it was the voice I feel was better in the first half as he finds that kid down at the bottom of Arkham and it's super creepy. It did fit there better than it did at the beginning, but I got to Bullock's private eye office and I was like, oh, I'll come back to this. And then as you started talking about it, I was like, oh yeah, I didn't finish this. So yeah. You sound like we're still on the same page. It feels off. Art looks great though. It's very moody. I like Danny's art here.
Yeah, no, that's good. All right, what are you giving Detective Comics 1063?
I'm giving it an 8.5.
I don't go another straight 8. I am really enjoying it. It's just, you know, I'm getting submerged in the world and kind of what Ramvi's building. But It's just that sort of thing where it didn't blow me away immediately in the first issue, but I feel like it's doing a good job building up, and I think I'm going to care more and more about it as it plants more of its seeds, and I get to know these villains a bit more and like what it's doing with Batman. I feel like right now the Barbatos stuff feels quite just out there, because we don't have contextualization for it yet, really.
Yeah.
So, but no, 8 out of 10 for me. Right, cool. Action Comics 1046, Philip K. Johnson writing with Fico Ossio on the art. So this is not the final issue of the Warworld saga. There's a one-shot coming that's going to be the big send-off for it. But this is the final issue in action of it.
Yeah.
Before we start the crossover with Kal-El coming back to Earth. So it is a pretty decent issue. I think what maybe hurts a couple of these later issues in this run is just that because they're more action focused, they don't have quite the same thoughtfulness that a lot of the better issues do.
This one's puts the action in Action Comics.
Yeah.
And I'm not mad at it for that. However, why I love this run was the whole inspiration of Superman, which is cool because we get to look at him from different perspectives in Warworld, and that's what really drives that home. Here we are straight up following Kal-El as he looks for the fire of, I always forget the dude's name. Olgren. There you go.
Yeah, no, I mean,
again, this is like Philip Kennedy Johnson doing space fantasy, and I'll never be mad at that. So
yeah, and
cool.
there's some good stuff in the action. He opens up the mouth of like a worm with all these big spiky teeth at one point, and that looks quite cool. But he's getting to the where this Fire of Olgren is, and he meets this kind of like spirit effectively, who asks him a riddle if he can get a chance to go meet like what's left of Olgren, and Olgren like goes to fight him. But it turns out this big like avatar of Olgren is really just being controlled by the spirit. But Superman at one point, because he doesn't know that yet, like dives to save the spirit and push her out the way of the big warrior, and that kind of is what convinces her that he's worthy of the Fire of Olgren. Because she says, you would give your life for an unliving child, and he just smiles and says, "You don't seem that unliving to me." So that's kind of the the inspiration, and that's what this run is best at. So that's
So he comes in and she gives him the riddle, which I love all that stuff, and he has to figure out. And it's a father had given out 4 gifts, and he has to guess the gifts, and it's kind of like a riddle of the Sphinx, where it shows the nature of man. So Superman figures it out, and then he has to fight this gigantic Olgren like statue, if you will, which was all very fun. And when this little girl spirit, he goes to save her, and because as he comes up, she's like, well, this is impossible. You're a warrior with no bodies on your soul. You are actually an unblooded sword. There's no way you're going to get through here.
As in he's not killed anyone, because he's Superman.
Right. He hasn't killed anybody, and that other more powerful warriors have come through here, and they weren't able to. And it just shows that it's because Superman's not looking to harm, right? And that's what makes him worthy of the Fire of Olgren, is he's the type of pure soul that'll be able to wield it. Because even saving this avatar at the end of this little girl who's Olgren's daughter, that's what she represents. That's what the fire was. And again, that's also very much in why Superman's doing all of this. It's like he's not going to use the fire to take over Warworld. He's using it to free everybody. He's using it for other people. And I really loved how that all was driven home through the super actiony, Indiana Jones-esque at parts story. So
yeah. Obviously, the big thing at the end though is he comes back out with the Fire of Olgren, and what's his name? Krillux, who is the one that's mainly been working with him, the old one who's been teaching him the ways of the Philosians. He has betrayed him. He's made some kind of deal with Mongol. And Mongol's got his giant sword, and he's threatening the kid Philosians and says, "Give me the Fire of Olgren, or I'll kill these little
whelps
buggers."
Yeah.
So obviously it's a decent cliffhanger get into the big final issue. The idea that Mongol just wants to take it off him after Superman's the one who's went and retrieved it and proven himself worthy is quite interesting. Can Superman even just pass it on as simply as that? Right. I mean, I don't know.
No, and I feel like it's going to be a thing that this is him being in possession of the fire is going to be able to make him more Superman, right? It's gonna put his powers kind of
I
back.
feel like it's going to cure whatever was draining them in the
Yeah,
first place. Yeah.
right. And so, but also, Krillix, it was like, you should have let me die when they were fighting the worm, and it was just, and Superman's like, no, I'm not going to do that, because if I don't make it back, the Phalosians trust you. So we want to, I need to ensure that someone's going to make it back to keep this going. Yeah. So there was something going on with Krillix there at the beginning, and then at the end when it's revealed that he, flipped over for Darkseid for whatever reason, Darkseid for Mongol for whatever reason, um, we'll find out. But yeah, I do feel like this fire is what, is going to even the odds for Superman to eventually free Warworld, because we know it's coming. So.
Oh yeah, that's what we're building up to.
Yeah, but no, really good. Fico Ossio's art I really like the action stuff was I think drawn really well. I never got lost in any of it. Like, it all read, as it should, very sequentially. And I like his Superman. His Superman feels very old school kind of Superman, where he's not like yeah, he has rippling muscles, but he's not super jacked. He has just a strong man presence, which is cool. So.
Yeah, I like the issue. I like kind of the final beats of how he gets the fire, and the cliffhanger's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But it has a lot of action, and it's not necessarily what I think the strength of this
Mm-hmm.
run is, though. So it's not like a standout of the run for me. It's it's a necessary part to get to the next point, effectively. But with some good moments, sprinkled in throughout. I do wonder how well it's going to read when it's all just done and you can just read it in one succession, because I think it's issues like this where it's mostly just action that I feel suffer the most from the month wait, because it doesn't feel there's a lot of meat in it. It feels like it's all just a bit of flashiness. But no, good all the same. I do like the final page quite a bit. Obviously, I wish the art was more consistent and we just had the main artist the whole time. But,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously at this point that's long gone. Hopefully, the final one shot is what's his face?
I know who you're talking about. The artist. Yeah.
The names escape me, but you know who I'm talking about.
Yes.
So yeah, that's cool. And then the backup, which is also, of course, by Johnson. You've got Conduit having stolen the fragment.
Genesis.
Yeah, the Genesis fragment. The super family show up and basically take care of him. Bit of action, whip bang. John shows up, and what's interesting here, there's 2 points here that are very interesting. So when he gets into trouble and realizes that he can't win this fight with 5 members of the Superman family, he calls Amanda Waller and says he needs help. And Waller says, "My team on your Earth doesn't have the firepower to take a group like that." And I'm like, what do you mean you're... all of a sudden, what's this? This is a Waller from another Earth who sent Conduit in?
Yeah, that might have been a typo.
You think?
Maybe.
Well, I don't know, because like then after they take him down and he tries to supercharge himself with the fragment, which destroys the fragment, when Steel has to smash it off of him. He says just as he's going down, he's awake now, he sees us, he's coming. So I'm actually wondering if they're setting up a big story for after Warworld Saga.
Yeah, well, I took that as it's the darkness is coming.
But from Dark Crisis?
Yeah. That's what I think. Because he saw the whatever was coming, because the kryptonite and whatever in his system with the Genesis, I felt that sent him. Because that's the only thing I think that could make sense. Because what else could it, what else would they be setting up? I don't know a story here.
Their next story, whatever the next story is, it could be anything.
I don't know about that. I just feels like
I did not get Dark Crisis tease or tie-in to that line at all. Nothing about that felt Dark Crisis to me.
I don't know. I hope you're more right, because that felt wedged in here.
This feels more like what Johnson's setting up his own plot for later to me. This did not feel like a Dark Crisis thing.
I mean, I hope.
As the Amanda Waller thing saying, I don't have a team on your Earth to deal with this. That feels like a setup to me. But I mean,
the other thing here that got me too is the whole firepower, because it's all of these supers. Which I really like that even Waller knows when there's 5 of them in one spot. That's a whole lot for her to deal with. And then also Conduit using that whole anti-alien rhetoric, and Supergirl pointing out that Keenan and Steel are as human as they get. They just have they have Superman branding, if you will.
Connor's half human as well.
Yeah, and Connor's half human. So is John. So just I like her pointing out how stupid he sounds. That's fun. And he had to destroy Steel had to destroy the Genesis fragment, which was kind of like anticlimactic, because he just is kind of like, oh well, that's there. Supergirl points out to him, well, how are you gonna save Fa'ala now? And he's like, oh well, Superman won't give up on her. We won't either. And I was kind of like, oh okay, well, this whole idea was him using the Genesis fragment, and now it's gone.
Stop playing whatever Velcro thing you're playing with.
Sorry, didn't realize it was getting picked up. But yeah, I don't know. I just kind of fell flat there, just because it was one of those things where, oh, the only thing we need, he destroyed. Well, hopefully Superman saves the day, So
yeah, it just says to be continued in the one shot. Yeah, so I thought those two teases were interesting, although you're writing them both off as a typo and it's just Dark Crisis. I don't think either of those are true, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what comes from it.
I hope I'm wrong. And one of the times you'll ever hear that.
Luckily for you, you're wrong a lot, so. Alright, what are you giving Action Comics?
So I'm going to give the main story a 9. I'm going to do the backup a 7.5. So overall, I'll give this an 8.
Yeah, I'd probably say main story an 8, backup like a 7. So I guess if I'm drawing the average, 7.5. But there you go. That's Action Comics. Robin, issue 17, Joshua Williamson writing with Roger Cruz on the art, and I kind of completely forgotten that this was going to be the last issue. Obviously, it is spinning out into the Mark Waid book, which obviously is even a little tease at the end for that book. And some of the stuff that the book's even doing in the main issue is setting up with Grandma Al Ghul, whatever her name is.
Yeah.
Mother
Soul.
That's the one. So, yeah, I mean, this is basically the kids are on the way back to the island because they know Lord Deathman's up to something.
Yep.
We saw him kiss Mother Soul last issue. Turns out she's kind of just using him to get the heart of the demon.
She's a ghoul, of course she is.
Yeah, I did like it though, because he kind of realizes that he's been had a little bit, and I thought she killed him, but she actually does give him what he wants, which is some extra power. So he actually hulks out, and we get it's an excuse for a big fight scene where all the kids fighting Halt out Lord Deathman. I do love that he's maniacally laughing because he loves the fact that he's a big Hulk monster. That did make me laugh a little bit.
Yeah, this is the fun stuff that I love that Williamson does, and his dialogue for Lord Deathman 2 is just so over the top. And then when you add the maniacal laughter, it is so funny.
He's swiping his big claws because he's sort of like hulking demonically, and whatever. But then he starts glowing green with presumably Lazarus energy, and he just starts laughing and says, "Oh baby, we're cooking with gas now," as he smiles. And I'm like, I love how much he loves being a supervillain.
Yep. That was the line. The now we're cooking with gas, because all he wants to do is be able to defeat the Batman in Japan, right? That's what he's doing, or is it all Batman? He wants enough power. But yeah, and I also love the stuff that Flatline, saying that she wasn't a damsel. She was in control the whole time, and she wants Robin to come and, help her there in Japan. I loved all of that stuff.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because it kind of, ends, obviously the fight ends with Robin pulling out Lord Deathman's heart, but he's on Lazarus Island though, so he's going to be fine.
Well, and he has resurrection powers.
Yeah, so he has, that's true.
He was double okay.
Yeah, so he'll be fine. But Flatline's going back to deal with stuff in Japan. Connor Hawke's going to find Oliver. They have like a fun day at the beach first though, so we get like a 2-page layout of them just doing sandcastles and surfing and whatever else. So they have their emotional goodbye for whatever it is, and kind of admit their feelings a little touch. There is a moment though with one of these Deathstroke looking kids.
Bro, that's Respawn.
I thought it was Respawn, but we also but didn't we kill him?
We did, which is why this is a mystery. That did he
Yeah.
resurrect back on Lazarus Island? Did they bring him there?
Yeah, I remember they did. But yeah, so Respawn's watching as the boat drives off, and you know that's kind of it. So we get my only critique of this really is it didn't really feel like a final issue until the last couple pages, which felt like the last few pages felt like it was saying goodbye, right?
Yeah.
And it does the whole end for now thing. You get this big 2-page spread of Robin saying that he's still figuring out who he is, and in the clouds behind him is the Bat family, John, his new like Titan, age buddies.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, it's a nice kind of like send off for him. And then there's a 1-page tease for Batman versus Robin, which is the Mark Waid book. And it did set up that Mother Soul is trying to do stuff for Neza and bring him back. So it's setting up what they're doing in that, and it ties into the World's Finest book as well. So that's cool.
Yeah, so I do like just the fact that Ra's al Ghul translates to the demon's head. It could literally be any demon she's trying to resurrect, and it fits. So the fact that it's the Devil Nazah from the Wade book, I feel that's cool.
Yeah, and obviously it's been mentioned a couple times in the Robin book. So obviously Wayne Williamson have done some collaboration there and made it all kind of fit. So that's nice. It is a shame not to have this specifically, but I'm always excited for more Wade. So
yeah, it kind of hurts. Go ahead.
I'm less excited for the replacement Robin book though, which is the Tim Drake book.
Yeah, it's a Tim Drake book, which I would be excited for, but it's a writer. Who's the writer? Is it Fitzmartin?
It's the writer who was doing the Tim Drake shorts and Urban Legends.
I think it's Meg Fitzmartin, I think it is, and that's fine. But it's Riley Rosmo art, so yeah. I can't wait to hear about it through Connor and they make him read it.
Which he has been made to read. Don't worry, I know Connor's missed a few episodes. He is aware that he has Patreon books to do, so I think he's going to record them separately and I'll edit them into next week's episode. That's cool. Don't worry, August's Patreon books from Connor are coming. Have no fear. So, yeah. So, what's nice about that is that we don't have to extend the recording when we're sitting here, do we? I just edit them in later. So, very nice. So yeah, I thought this was a nice issue of Robin. Not my favorite of the run, and nothing spectacular, but a decent send off for some of the characters, and just a tease of where they're going now. So you'd assume that the Green Arrow and Connor Hawke reunion will happen somewhere. There's no Green Arrow book right now, so who knows? No.
But I am feeling about this book like I did about the Titans of the early 2000s, where I really like all of these characters when they're together. So I hope we do get something out of it, because I like Flatline and Robin and Connor Hawke and even like the what was her name, Black Swan, the ballerina girl. Like Williamson's really good at creating these characters, and I like seeing how they bounce off of.
You never know. Maybe he'll do a team book after he's done with the event. Maybe he'll
and I just something. However, this book has really gone through that. I was a huge Tim Drake fan of Robin, and I feel like he's the best Robin. And I don't know if I'm just being fickle, right? But after this run on the character, I'm really liking Damian for a lot of the choices that he's made and where he's at, and that he's really making a push. So
yeah. Damian's my second favorite. So
yeah. So So no, it was good. The Roger Cruz art I really like. When we got to the happy fun stuff, it didn't have the same like. Not feeling, because I felt like Roger Cruz. I don't know, when it's just not action focused.
It looked like it was inked and colored a little bit differently, because it looked flatter and simpler.
Yeah, like you could tell it was him, but the art felt different. I don't know, maybe he was going for a softer vibe because of the different actions going on. But no, but it was fine. Like I do like his art. So, but no, this book's been a whole lot of fun. I'm sad to see it leave. Although we are getting Wade as a slight continuance of whatever's going on, so that's a bonus. But I'll be sad that Williamson's off of Robin now.
Yeah. All right. What are you giving Robin issue 17?
I'm gonna give this an 8.
Yeah, I'm happy to give it the 8. I think. So there you go. That's Robin 17. All right. The Swamp Thing, issue 16, Ram V writing with Mike Perkins on the art. The final issue and was become one of the best Swamp Thing runs, I think. Probably this and the Alan Moore runner, I think, sitting on a bit of a pedestal for me at this point.
I need to go and read that because I've never read the Alan Moore stuff.
Yeah, so. I think the ideas this introduces just fit so well, and the it feels like a nice sort of like callback to the mood of that book at sometimes.
What I like here is that this is Ram V has created his own stamp on Swamp Thing, and I do like when writers are able to do that, right? Because this feels very much like kind of its own thing. And I hope other writers kind of pull from it in the future if he doesn't do anything else.
Yeah. So basically, the machines, the industry, all this stuff. It's all
Parliament of Gears.
Well, no, yeah, it's the Parliament of Gears, but I'm thinking more the city that's built around them. Like,
okay.
It's like it's all lumped in this area in the desert. You've got the alien plants above, Swamp Thing's stuck in all the gears. That's kind of the cliffhanger we left off. And Trinity came in to kind of like say her piece. And the Wanderer's like doesn't even want to hear what she's got to say, but the gears themselves are like, no, we want to hear this. This is relevant to our interests. And ultimately, the final story here becomes about this idea that she could either represent the repercussions and therefore the destruction of how she was created, or be something that's created for joy, something that can actually do some good. And then it kind of extrapolates from there. And obviously we had the example of the old man being kind to her, and that kind of taught her some nice things. And the humanity that she's gotten from Levi and the history of human beings and stuff. But it's kind of, Swamp Thing then kind of comes in and sort of continues this idea about how it's always been about choice. It's always like this choice. Like industry itself can be about greed, it can be about the capitalism, or it can be about innovation. It can be about making things better. And you can choose to be that. That could be the choice that you make as a parliament. Yeah,
because the parliament represents the avatars represent the idea, but the parliament are the ones that make the choice of what they're going to represent. And and I like that. I'd never thought about that before. Like I always talk about how much I love the Charles Soule run because he did all these kind of Green Lantern-esque parliaments, right, where you had the fungus and the bacteria and the information and. Right, and that was all cool as like character stuff, but it's Ram V that's taken them that these avatars are personification of ideas, and those ideas are shaped by the Parliament who are making the choices, and that was something I had never thought before. So that they put it here, and that the green, when we've looked at the green, and some of the choices they've made in the past. And it's led to
oh yeah, they're not always good choices. No. They're not always for the better of humans, then, certainly.
So when you look back and think about these Swamp Thing runs and each of the choices the Parliament to make, it works on that meta level too, right? And
later on in the issue, the whatever part of the Parliament chose Levi to be an avatar talks about how. Oh no, like the innocence of him up in that tree swinging at the edge of the forest, and like the idea that his heart was learning how to fly, and that's partly why they chose him, because there was an innocence to him. Right. So the idea that even the avatar as well is this influence that if they pick the right one will encourage them to make the right choice is kind of an interesting idea as well. But you get this 2-page layout where Swamp Thing's explaining some of this, and you get like both good and bad things that come from certain technologies. You get the explosions, but you also get the medicine that comes from it. You get the the toxic waste, but then you also get the regrowth of things, and so weapons versus other. There's good and bad things that can come from anything.
Yeah, which we kind of were hitting on in the last issue when Trinity was getting closer and what she represented from where she was born, and how nuclear power can be this ultimately destructive force, but it also paves the way for the future, and that's some good storytelling there. That was seeded and then it pays off.
Well, that's not the only seed. There's a seed way back at the start of the run that's brought up here. Right. Where the Wanderer, said something to the effect of, what happens when two ideas clash, one consumes the other, and Swamp Thing corrects him here and says, no, when two ideas meet, there's a choice. It's not that one consumes, there is a choice.
Right.
And ultimately, they do convince the Parliament of Gears to make the choice, and it seems like Trinity becomes the new avatar of the Parliament of Gears, because she's also created by, a man-made thing. She's also this product of industry, military industry specifically, but
right. But at the same time, it's what she's a little bit more pure in that the Pale Wanderer was put together, right? He was a choice in of himself, of the corporation, right? He's not.
Trinity's a natural byproduct of what was already happening.
She's a natural byproduct of the sand and decisions that were made, and so she's a little bit more free to be what she wants. And she's not going to try to exert her control over the Parliament the way that the Wanderer would. And I like that dichotomy between the two.
Yeah, it kind of it's interesting to me because it kind of makes this Wanderer the what you call Woodrow, right? So Woodrow is the Swamp Thing, what the Wanderer now is to Trinity, and that he's this negative force and influence on the Parliament of Gears.
Well, and you have that in the Arcanes as well, right? With Abby and Anton, right?
Yeah, well, they come from the Rot though, right? Like Anton Arcane.
But that's what I mean. But like, that's what I learned from the Scott Snyder Swamp Thing, right? Is like all three of those parliaments that we use in that book were trying to be in harmony with one another, right? You don't want one to get more powerful than the others.
Oh, I know where you're coming from, but I'm just saying in this comparison, I don't think it fits because I'm saying that they're both specific to industry in the same way that Woodrow is also messing with the green.
Okay.
And he's this negative influence on the green versus Swamp Thing. Like, so with the industry, it's the same thing here, where Trinity is this positive, and we didn't know for sure she was going to be a positive force up until, it was kind of leaning that way, but this was kind of the final coming out party of that. But
also, you don't think that Anton is in that same negative force on the Rot, wanting to use it to, cause death and destruction versus renewal in the way that we saw Abby?
Well, maybe it is, but like, what's the positive force of the Rot then?
Well, that's the whole renewal, right? That's the whole circle of life that we got to at the end of that Snyder run. Is that when Abby takes over, it's death's a natural part of life, and the Rot is what seeds things back to the earth, and it helps add to the balance.
Oh, sure, but my point is that he's not that to Swamp Thing because he's a part of a different parliament. He's
right. He's
a different force, so
right. Well, that's why I said Abby and Anton.
I guess I kind of see it. I feel like I don't know if it fits perfectly because obviously that was written before this and it didn't have that idea in mind when it was coming together.
And when you think back to the future state stuff, where we see that there's these other swamp things in the future, and that they seem to represent different aspects of swamp things that we've met, and one of them is very Woodrow-esque, so that's been there since Ram V's, that's been at the forefront of his mind since. And even him showing up in Justice League Dark in that way too.
I do think that's a conscious choice that he's looked at this relationship that Swamp Thing and Woodrow have always had in Swamp Thing stories and kind of like built this dichotomy into industry as well, which just makes it feel fuller. It makes it feel more real. There's a great page when the Wanderer is basically refusing to give up power, where Swamp Thing tackles them, and it's like they're falling out the sky into this industrious city. So it's all this like yellow city from a distance, they're falling into.
Right.
It looks like a sort of like bird's eye shot that they're falling down into with these like vertical panels, and it just looks like a massive industry without any like signifiers of anything specific. So just it has that feeling of just a massive parts.
Industry for the sake of industry instead of for a cause,
So Swamp Thing grows this, and he's the Wanderer says, "I'll be back. I'll always come back because there'll always be greed, there'll always be corruption and more reasons to exist." And he's right. And Swamp Thing says, "Well, yeah, but every time there's a chance for a better choice. Like the choice will always be there, and we have to hope and convince the people to make the right one." So there's a lot of really inspirational ideas and a lot of good themes just kind of baked in here.
Yep. And this is where I was like, I would like Ram V to stop being so good at what he does, please, because I've thought about this book. I read it on Thursday, and I keep coming back to certain things of it. And I can't say, as much as I love comic books, as much as I love Philip Kennedy Johnson's Action Comics because of Superman, just this whole thing of like, you'll come back, but that's another battle we have to win, And there's just there's hopefulness in that. and it really lands. And it's, the way that this begins too, with that little city of Destino, just the idea that's the Spanish word for destiny, and that's, about choice as well. It's baked into every part of this book.
Yeah, and then obviously once this tree grows, you get this great full page spread of the tree towering above the industrial city that has moss like over a lot of it now. It's coexisting. There's trees mixed in with the industry, which is kind of how you have to look at it. The book's never trying to say that we don't need some form of industry, we don't need technology, because of course we do, but there's this peaceful coexistence.
It's about that balance. And then again, that's what I like about these characters is, you can't have the good without the bad, so let's try to work as best as we can. And when that gets thrown out of balance, that's where we get the conflict, and that's where we get really good Swamp Thing stories.
Yeah, and that's when the narration from someone in the Parliament of trees seems to take over, and talks about the industry making their choice to be what it is now. That Trinity is now their avatar, and the choice to make Levi an avatar. And he takes Jen out there to where he used to swing as a kid, and the roots that his father made him touch. And there's this great moment where his father said, "What do you see or what do you feel when you touch those roots?" And Jen asks him the same questions now, and he just smiles. There's a great panel where he smiles, and then the next page is this full page. It could be a poster of Swamp Thing just holding his arms up, but the sun in the background, surrounded by trees. And it's like this very kind of, peaceful, like serene, idyllic kind of moment where he's one with nature now. So that's right, and that's when the Wanderer shows up again to be like, hey, you think you've won, but I'll be back. And he's like, yeah, maybe you're right. But there'll always be a choice. And as long as there's a choice, there's always a better one. And that's all we can hope for. So it just ends with him walking into the forest after he says that. It's a beautiful ending. It kind of sums up a lot of the themes that it's been playing with this whole time. I think the ideas of the Parliament of Gears and the industry, I think, really captivated me. This is shot into. I mean, I'd have to really stop and think about it. I'm sure one day we'll do a list, but this is probably something like in my top 20 DC runs.
Oh, easily.
Yeah. I don't want to say top 10 because, there's a lot of good runs, but top 20 for sure.
This is up there just because, and it's a full story, right? I'm so glad we got these last 6 to really pull everything together because we really enjoyed the first 10.
Yeah, I've said this a few times. I really enjoyed the first 10 and found a lot to love in them. There's a few really standout issues in there. But these last 6 brought it all together. It's a sort of thing we would never have known. But once we got to issue 12 or 13, the one that really let into the industry stuff, I was like, oh god, imagining this run without this part of it now, it sounds depressing because this is...
It really takes it up to a next level because the story really comes on its own, where the first 10 are a fine story about Swamp Thing and him fighting, the whole struggle with him and his brother versus I always forget the name of the company, but was it Pilgrim?
It was, but I was going to say Wayland Yutani as a joke, but yeah, sure, it's Pilgrim.
Yeah, gotcha. with Pilgrim and what that represents, but yeah, here when we get the guy that was running Pilgrim, fusing with the Pale Wanderer, and that being a representation of greed, and now he's going to use that for the Parliament of Gears, and then we get Trinity, which I remember the first time we got that, I was like, where is this going? Like, what's this represent? And looking up Trinitite and finding out that it's a real thing, and people tried to make money off of it and it made people sick. And how does this fit in with the story? And just each issue has peeled back an even bigger layer until we get to this really hopeful ending, which it seemed like at the beginning we were so far away from that. It seemed like everything was bad, and what is it? Do we even need Swamp Thing, in the sense of the world in the book? No, here's a guy that looked through and where he's at peace with his place in the world.
Yeah,
and it's just, man, it's super hopeful, and I feel like we need more of that.
No, I think it took the character and did things that felt like it felt ingrained into what Swamp Thing's always been, but did a lot of new things with it as well. and there were new things that kind of really stoked my imagination. So I loved it. It was a fantastic run. This final issue capped it off perfectly, and I really have very little negative to say about it. So
I have one thing, and that it's over, and now I don't have anything to look forward to.
but it has to. That's the thing.
Wise.
If it just kept going, it would eventually dwindle because the point of what it was would fade. Like much like a good TV show, you have to end. You have to end the story.
No, and I agree, and I say it mostly as a joke but Swamp Thing became one of those books where I was like eagerly waiting for it, and I would sit down and make sure I have time. Like I don't want to be interrupted while I'm reading it.
Oh yeah.
And it was a whole thing, and it's been a while since I've had a book like that. So, and I'm very thankful for Ram V and Mike Perkins, and also how somehow Perkins got even better with each issue.
Yeah, it was kind of like this weird rise of Tour de Force where he started off really good and a perfect fit for material, but then as time went on, it's like he was just getting better and better. All these little things with the faces, especially in their expressions, and just how moody or sinister some of it could be. It kept building.
And then we always say that Perkins works best with the shadows, but towards the end of this, man, he's playing with light. Like we're talking some of the Green Lantern stuff, and at the end of this book with that page that you brought up with the Swamp Thing standing in the sun, there's like no shadows, and it looks even better. And so just him constantly changing things up and keeping us on our toes via the art is super, super good.
Yep, perfect match for the material. Couldn't have asked for a better pair, really. So, I guess for the final 10, I'll ask, what are you giving Swamp Thing?
I'm giving this one a 10.
Yeah, I'm going to go 9.5, and that's just because it's not my favourite issue of the run. There's one or two issues that I gave a 10 to, and I'm letting them stay the peak of the book, but I'm going to give this a 9.5. Fantastic run, though. Couldn't recommend it more, to be honest, especially if you like Swamp Thing as a concept. So, the Swamp Thing issue 16 brings an end to this fantastic series. Task Force Z issue 11, Matthew Rosenberg writing with Eddy Barrows on the art. Now, I was a bit tight on time this week, so I didn't quite get to it. I should hopefully read it before the next issue, because 12's the last issue, so I really should be there for the final one. But you can fill us in what's going on.
Basically, Bloom's been orchestrating this whole thing from the beginning through Powers International.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. It seems to have been hitting that for a while, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, and that, he saw an opportunity to be in control of life. And I'm still not sure, and I don't know if we'll ever get the full answers there, but at the beginning it goes to, Dent coming into Jason and offering him this, and that just, basically, you don't have to do this, Jason, but the world will be a lot better if you're in control of the monsters if you're not. And so that's where he ends up making the decision. But it smash cuts to that, to Jason being upset with Dent about lying about Bane, and he was kind of like, well, we had to, because we had to give you a carrot, right? Because we knew this was the guy but we couldn't actually put the real guy because we couldn't trust you, because you did exactly what we thought you would, and that was throw him off a building. So I'm still not clear on the whole Gotham, why they chose to use him for Bane when they're swapping memories, and now you have this flying Bane going around. But the Lazarus resident's starting to give Gotham his memories back, and so his sister smashes into the Powers International headquarters, and they embrace, and she's super happy. He's confused because he has Bane's memories and Gotham's memories. And then Bloom shows up, and you look like there's going to be a fight with him and Gotham Girl, but no, she hugs him for giving her brother back. And Jason is fighting the rest of them. Powers sends the OG squad plus Deadshot and Copperhead. So you got Man-Bat and Arkham Knight in there. He dispenses through them, gets through, realizes that he doesn't have to take it easy on Astrid because she's Astrid Arkham, she's reverted back to the point where she's a complete zombie. So he, says that it makes it easier. A lot of fun action pages by Barrows here. He does a fun art thing on this page where he fights Astrid Arkham, where you have stuff going on in the background and then the foreground. And it just makes the fight seem that much epic, even though it's him using his crowbar against an Arkham Knight, which is, when you think about it, super silly, but Barrows makes it look great. Deadshot makes an explosion. It sends Jason into Arkham, into Gotham. It looks like Jason's, got his hands full, and then Gotham Girl shows up, completely messes him up. It cuts over to Bloom, who has that Dr. Archeron head in a jar, and the lady that runs Powers comes in and is completely, like horrified at everything that's going on. He goes, "Oh yeah, you think that's bad?" He hasn't stopped screaming since I put him in there. So again, at Rosenberg, a lot of fun with Bloom. And in the tunnels under Gotham, Dent's leading the other half of the new team. So you have the Lady Scarecrow, I always forget her name, KG Beast, Grundy, and Zaz with him. And as they're trying to get under Powers to kind of be the cavalry for Jason, this arm, like robotic arm, comes out and takes out KG Beast, takes the head off of the Lady Scarecrow, and it's Bloom in the rookie Batman armor, and like the Bat Bunny.
Oh.
Yeah. And so he tells Harvey hello, which I can't not read in Heath Ledger's Joker voice from when he goes to visit Harvey in the hospital. It's just one of those things. But KG Beast wants to know why he's dressed as Robot Batman. Grundy doesn't even hesitate. He says smash Batman. And he ends up taking out, this is where Bloom takes out KG Beast and just wrecks Grundy. And he tells him, I was hoping not to kill you. I want to study you, but I might have messed that up, as he smashed Grundy into the ceiling of the caves underneath, and he's just hanging there. And then Bloom gets a hold of Harvey, and it cuts back to Harvey's all tied up, and it looks like Jason's standing over him, all zombified. And so it looks like they finally killed Jason Todd again. But then Harvey looks over, and it's the head of security from Powers that they put in Red Hood's stuff, and they're putting his memories into him. So now they'll be fully able to control Red Hood. And that Bloom created the Lazarus resin. And so this was all just a ploy for him to be the sole controller of it through Powers. But Jason says, he's like, well, you really think I didn't do this without Batman knowing everything going on? He's on his way with the Justice League, and they should be here any minute. And the briefcase that they're holding, or not the briefcase, Bloom has the Lazarus resin, and as he's trying to make a getaway, Jason's suit explodes and causes a big explosion, and that's where it ends, is that Powers International is exploding with everybody inside. I'm sure they'll be fine because there's that much Lazarus resin in that suitcase that Bloom had. But yeah, man, this ride just keeps getting wilder, and from something that started off as a dead Suicide Squad kind of vibe has just completely turned into kind of like a love letter to a certain era of Batman comics, which I think is really cool. I was never expecting to see Bloom in the robot bunny suit, the Batman suit. And yet here we are. So it's also doing stuff with Gotham and Gotham Girl, which I was not expecting anytime this going through. But yeah, my big problem is the story just keeps getting murkier, and there's just things that are happening, and I almost feel like this was almost supposed to be 18 issues, and they've smashed it all into 12, because there's a lot of story here towards the back. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with Bloom. They still haven't really explained him. I don't know if we ever will get that explanation, but just that at the end of the day, he created the Lazarus resin for Powers International, and that's been the key to all this. And now he wants his creation back. So, but yeah, I really thought we got to the point where we killed Jason Todd again, and
we can dream.
He was running around with the Lazarus, but no, they just put a dead security. The head of security in his suit, which he ended up getting blown up. So, but yeah, the Barrows art's really good. It's really grotesque where it needs to be. The action scenes are real good. In fact, you kind of get lost with the words more than you get lost with the art, which is, I think, says a lot about Barrows as an artist. So I'm gonna give this overall. I'll give this issue a 7.
Okay. All I'll say is you listed a lot of character names when you were talking about that. There was a lot of people mentioned.
A lot of people show back. So but are you only an issue behind? Only
yeah. I read issue 10, so yeah.
So all of the ones that are involved. The only new ones that show up is Gotham Girl, and Gotham, but you knew from the last one. So
yeah.
But yeah, no, it is a lot of characters, and I'm almost feeling like, is this gonna play into whatever happens to Harvey here? Is that what leads into where we saw him in Detective with the mask, or is that just a Ram V special that he was like, hey, I want to play with a reformed Two-Face? But I do feel like him strapped to a Gertie here at the end might have some, there might be some things that come out of it.
Yeah, it might be a little link up. Because I don't know if this was always planned as a 12 issue book. I think it originally was an ongoing, and at some point they decided it was only 12, so maybe it was meant to be more and they had to condense the story down.
Because it just feels like there's a lot of story they're shoveling in here towards the end, where early on it felt like it was taking its time, and now it's just like, oh, here's 14 characters, here's this, and so.
Yeah, okay. All right. Tales from the Human Target, Issue 1, Tom King writing with MIkel, Janin, Kevin Maguire, Rafael Albuquerque, and a little bit of art by Greg Smallwood. He does kind of a wraparound style thing. So I was expecting an anthology with like 3 different stories spaced out. Instead, all 3 of them are mixed up, and you get kind of them all playing out. So it's bouncing around the 3 of them as you go through the book. So the art's constantly changing, but it's obviously kind of there to help you tell which story you're in, if it's not obvious from the characters or whatever. So, and just to kind of skip to the end a little bit, the conceit of this story is that this is Ice talking to 3 different characters and getting, basically finding out what they know about Christopher Chance before she talked to him for the first time. So this is set up the night before, well, at least one of the conversations is. The last one is set the night before she met him in issue 2 or 3, whatever that issue was. So very interesting. And the small snippets we get of these scenes are the Smallwood art, and then we get so one's a Guy Gardner story.
And that art is by is that the Janin?
Well, the Booster Gold's definitely Maguire, for sure.
Maguire.
And then Albuquerque is the
no. So Albuquerque's the Gardner.
Yeah, that's what I say.
The Fire is Janin. Yeah, and those are the 3 here. Which I do like how they split that up. I wasn't expecting that with this story to go to weave in and out of certain characters. And I do feel it was put together extremely well.
Yeah, and what's funny about it is that, each story has someone who seemingly is either going to be killed or is killed, and it's not really that much of a twist to guess early on. In all 3 cases, they're going to turn out to be Human Target. They're all going to turn out to be him. And it's kind of this interesting way to play with it, where so the Brother Blood Guy Gardner story is that this rich guy got
celebrity, like son of a celebrity type.
Yeah, but he's in an accident and he ends up in the Brother Blood cult, and Guy Gardner takes offense to that and all his actions, so he goes to beat him up and try to convince him that he's not in the cult. But it turns out, of course, eventually that it's Christopher Chance. He's like, look, I'm taking the job to infiltrate Brother Blood's cult so that I can get to him, and blah blah blah. It's okay, so that's one way you do it, and that's good. That's maybe more the comical one, because just, well, two of them are comic, because Booster Gold's pretty funny too. But you've got that, and then the Booster Gold one is that this writer, this author, has got a bounty in his head, so people keep trying to kill him. So Booster Gold decides to take it upon himself to protect him and be his bodyguard, which is actually messing things up, because the whole point is that Christopher Chance is pretending to be this guy and wants to be killed publicly so that whoever's put out the bounty will think he's dead, and the writer can live in secret for the rest of his life. That's what he wants. So
let me just say, the number of times I laughed out loud in this Booster story.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh my goodness. Like, King, I would just love for King to do a comical Booster story. And I don't know who you get to do, Art, Maguire, whoever. But man, some of that one.
So you've got that. I'm summarizing before we talk about them.
Yeah.
And that. And then the other one, which is the Fire story, is that Fire, this is in her modeling days, her photographer, who she was kind of close to but didn't know too much about, got shot and died. And she stayed with him all the way to the hospital. Then he died. I mean, he didn't die right away. He died in the hospital there. But then she stuck with the body. She stayed with them for the funeral, and it's not even a proper funeral because there's no family members, but it's just like he's being cremated. And she stays with them the entire way, make sure he gets a coffin. And the whole point is that Chance was waiting to be alone so he could like swap out his disguise and continue his investigation and find out who was killing the dude or whatever. And she was being so nice and sweet and so empathetic that it actually stopped him from doing his job. So that's the one that's kind of less funny but more of a sweet vibe to it. So that's the three stories that are being told throughout these. But it's like a 45-page book, and we're bouncing around all these stories. Obviously, all the art is very good, but it's different between each story. What did you feel about this one? What did you make of it?
I know that this is again one of the highlights of my week, because again I was expecting like anthology style, so thought we were gonna a Booster story with Maguire, but it would all be told in one. The fact that it weaved in and out and they all hit their emotional, crux at the same time, just it's really picture perfect storytelling.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, I got a lot of, because even before we got the reveal, this idea that this writer didn't want Booster around, and Booster kept showing up and he keeps saying things that are factually incorrect. Like, I wrote my own my memoir, and Skeets is like, no, you didn't. I wrote it. It's like, yeah, but I dictated it. No, you didn't. You said write stuff about everything and went to go get a bagel.
Yeah. Well, and is a bagel a sandwich? Is that still going from the Booster Gold issue?
Yeah.
Once I put together that the writer there's a $100 million bounty on his head because he wrote an expose about Ra's al Ghul. And so there's constantly his life is going to be, all these assassins coming out of the woodwork to collect on him. And the idea that Booster thinks for a second that he could be one of the people to collect, because he can do a lot of stuff with $100 million. That just was so funny to me. And then the Booster keeping him from like, oh, I found a bomb in your car. I disabled it. You're okay. And just the expression. So Maguire's really good at expressions.
Yeah, I think you get
strengths.
I think you get from hindsight as well when you realize that this is Chance and he wants to have a public death to give this guy freedom. Is that he was probably putting the bombs there himself?
Yeah, and just the look of exasperation on the writer's face, it cracked me up. Almost like this guy had a death wish before you put it together that it is Christopher Chance. You're almost like, well, does he have a death wish? Maybe that's why he wrote the book, and then of course, a couple pages later you realize it's Christopher Chance, and maybe he put the bomb there himself. Maybe he, paid the assassin to target him. But yeah, the Gardner story, I know I'm a big Guy Gardner fan, but it definitely fits in with the Gardner that we were reading already.
Oh yeah, he's a prick. He's a complete prick in this.
Although I did like it is very Guy Gardner, a lot of the stuff that I think, I don't know if King listened to the criticism from that issue that Guy Gardner fans had, but he is a little bit more of an honorable Guy Gardner here. Like when he takes the ring off to beat the piss out of this brother blood guy, that is a very Guy moment, yet him talking about how badass he is and stuff. That definitely felt more like in character there.
Yeah.
But I like that story too. I would like a mini almost of all of these. And I know that's probably not going to happen, but just like these are all really solid stories.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, they all kind of need to come together because they all benefit each other by the time you get to the end.
Yeah.
And you're left with kind of this question of, okay, so Ice was doing her research on him.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because she's just ultimately trying to play him and is like sort of learning about how, like, what he's how he works, like his ins and outs, how he, how does she like get to him and corrupt him if that's what she's trying to do? Because we've had this question of like, is this a genuine romance or is she the femme fatale? Is she ultimately leading him to his downfall, kind of thing? So this kind of stokes those fires a little bit. Whereas there's nothing implicating in this, I would say, but she could be doing research because she's been a professional and because she's scoping out a target effectively.
Right. It also gets me too because the way that it plays fire is, she seems as of the last issue that she was featured, she has a lot more to do with, the Lex Luthor poisoning than maybe we thought, and she has a femme fatale vibe. And then you read this, and the fact that she sat with her photographer after he had died, and it kind of runs counter to what we've seen, of her in the book so far.
Yeah, and you have to assume that
that's
this
interesting.
Yeah, and you have to assume that this is more honest because it's this is away from the the main narrative. This is just this narrative on its own, and her telling this to Ice. You sort of it feels like it has to be more true. By the way, one of my favorite panels in the book is when the body actually dies in front of fire, and you get this close up panel of her eyes with green flames in front of it.
Yeah,
I thought that was a really nice panel. I think the other thing that helps the art being different in each of these is that also the coloring. The Maguire art, and I love Maguire. I love when he did Supergirl. It's very sort of flat and Silver Age and these big bold colors. The Janin art has more muted colors with the fire story, and then Albuquerque has way more shadows and scratchiness to it because that's just Albuquerque style. So they all have a very distinct look, even beyond just the line work, which I think is really neat. So. No, all really good stuff. But that's kind of where I got at the end, was kind of like, okay, so these were all human target stories of him impersonating someone because that's kind of his gimmick. But it was kind of like, okay, why is Ice looking for this information? I wasn't sure how it was going to tie into the main book. I thought it might just be like random different stories and that was it. But the fact that by the end it's like, oh no, this was her doing her homework. For better or worse, for whatever reason it is, I thought that was kind of a cool way to tie it into the main book and feel relevant to it. So, very neat. Which is why it's also genius that those little moments with her are still in Smallwood art, because it still feels like that's the main part of the book,
Definitely.
So really good. Also, the fact that the eventual death of the writer, the fake death, with Chance taking the bullet, happens when Booster's standing right next to him doing press and doesn't notice that he gets shot.
Yep.
Is also genius funny. Yeah.
It plays in, really leans into the Booster stuff here. But yeah, just, again, Tom King getting to work with all of these artists at one book. That the man, again, CIA training. What does he have?
Yeah. And also, just on my thing of like, is Ice up to something and that's why she's doing her homework, the final thing she says also could be interpreted as, no, she just likes the sound of him. Because Fire says, you have to at least watch out because when you're with Christopher Chance, it means you're also the target now. And she goes, I am. Well, that sounds, now that I know him a bit, that sounds like fun. So maybe she is just like seeing something in him from these stories.
Even if it was to get rid of Gardner, if that was her overall plan, it worked. So, because I still don't know where to feel about her, because she does feel like the femme fatale in some moments. But in others, it feels like someone that is really trying to help him out, figure out who poisoned him. So, but I still think that ultimately the poisoning is like this job with the writer, where this is something that he's doing.
I think
there's something else out
from issue 1. I think the ultimate twist that this is kind of like always hanging over the book is that he's not really dying, and this is just another one of his human target style. Right. Hijinks, if you or
he's trying to flush someone out of Justice League International, and this is the way that he's doing it. And these 3 stories only show how far he'll go, right?
Yeah.
He was buried, and he popped up like a zombie on on fire.
The hand comes out of the grave, presumably because he doesn't know if she's left yet, and he's surprised to find Fire still there watching him.
Yeah.
So, no, really good stuff. The art is excellent in all three stories. It's all very distinct and different as well. Obviously Guy Gardner looks horrible because of that stupid haircut, but that's not Albuquerque's fault.
Yeah, no, it is Guy Gardner of that era, so you got to give him the stupid bowl cut.
Yeah.
But dude, the fight scene that he draws is you feel the punches. It's done really viscerally, which I like. It does feel like a slobber knocker. And
that's the other part as well. I said how different the art, in the stories is. They're all very different as well from Smallwood. So when you go back to that, the Ace part where she's here in the stories, it does feel again very distinct. But it's also we're back in the real part of the story, the timeline. So I mean, if this existed to give me a bit of flavor and hype me up for issue 7 coming out, then consider it a resounding success. So great stuff. What are you giving Tales of the Human Target issue 1?
I'm giving this a 9.
I am also going to give this a 9.
Boom.
So it is excellent. Obviously, it doesn't necessarily reach the peak of some of the great issues in the main book. I think I've given 9s, 9.5s, and 10s across the last 6 issues. But there you go. So once again, Connor's an idiot because he chose not to continue after issue 1. Or did he even try issue 1? I can't even remember.
I don't remember, but I understand there was some hesitation with Tom King, but now each book that he writes, as you pointed out earlier, without that, but Killing Time, Rorschach, Woman of Tomorrow, everything is just so good. It's of a certain quality.
Oh, he's on a hell of a run right now. It's something else. There you go. So that is our thoughts on Tales of the Human Target. Which I think the cover is misleading because it says book 1, there's going to be more, and I'm like, I know one shots usually say issue 1, but it feels a bit more specific with book 1.
You know what though? If this is something that he can come back to every once in a while and just do a story, something like this, or even just one story, because I feel like Human Target's the type of person that needs a limited series. Yeah. So if he was just coming back and doing one shots, annuals, whatever you want to call them, I think that's cool. I'd definitely be down for that. I feel like
we're getting close to probably hearing about a new 12-issue book from him, just because these other ones have finished. He did the Batman one shot, obviously. Killing Time's even done. So all he's got right now is Human Target, I think, unless I'm forgetting something. Yeah. But we're probably on the brink of him announcing something soon, I would assume. But
sure.
Cool. All right. That'll take us out of the part of the show where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel / moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and top 5 books. So we'll start with panel / moment. Matt, what do you got?
Oof, man, there's some really good ones in action. There's one where Superman busts through and sees the big gigantic Olgren, which is super cool. The Barrows page and tech is super good. But I'm gonna pull this one from Swamp Thing, and it's gonna be that last part about making choices and having hope. And Levi turning and walking away from Woodrue, or not Woodrue, the
Wanderer.
The Wanderer, thank you.
Yes.
Walking away and turning to and that's what the choices are about.
Yeah. I'm also gonna go from Swamp Thing, and I think I have to just go with the moment he finally says, when two ideas collide, it means there's a choice. Because for me that was like, oh, that's the entire point of this whole book. That everything just came down to that one sentence, and it feels great when you have those kind of moments. It's the that's what this is about, isn't it, Clarice? The screaming of the lambs, and you kind of all of a sudden get what the title is. It's like it's this. No, that's this because obviously the Swamp Thing.
Yeah, no, but it's the same kind of aha moment.
Yeah. But it doesn't feel cheap because it's like, oh, there's so much weight to it because they've spent all of these issues building up what that means. So that's my pick. So cover of the week. I'll mention 3. I mean, it's it is what it is, but I have to say the Art Germ Supergirl cover for Action is it looks good. All right, it's obviously it's a bit tacky because it's a swimsuit cover, but it looks good. What do you want from me? That's not my pick. Also, the variant for Swamp Thing, which is Brian Bolland, and it's like Swamp Thing coming out of like just a pile of like mechanical pieces and gears and shit. Looks very good. The gears and stuff are all in black and white, but then Swamp Thing's green, obviously, so that's cool. But my pick of the week, probably not a surprise, is the main cover for Tales of the Human Target. It's just stunning and pulpy and everything else. So, what's your pick, Matt?
Yeah. I was gonna pick that one, but in the sake of making different stuff, the variants for Human Target are also very nice.
Oh yeah.
There's a Marquez one that has has like the target shape, but there's different members of the Justice League International that take up like piece. That's really cool. And then there's a Jimenez. It's Chance and Tora. It just looks really, really nice. And it almost has a Norman Rockwell kind of quality to it. But yeah, I'm gonna do the Marquez variant because it's really cool. And you took the main cover, which trying to mix things up.
You can pick the same one. I'm not gonna give you.
No, I know, but I want to give credit to the Marquez one too.
Sure. All right. Art of the week.
This one's hard because it's either Mike Perkins or it's the grab bag of Human Target.
Yeah, normally when you have multiple artists, usually there's one that lets it down, but this is kind of a weird case where they're all pretty good.
Yeah. So I'll have you pick first.
Okay.
And I'll pick the opposite.
All right. Well, Albuquerque for Detective. No, I'm kidding. I mean, it's very good. The Albuquerque detective is very good.
Yeah.
I am going to go with Perkins though, because as much as it works in the context of jumping between the different stories, you're still jumping between art, and there's still something to be said for just consistent art throughout. And I think ultimately I'm giving it the Swamp Thing. So
there you go. Yeah, then I'll take Tales of the Human Target because that's just a sort of force.
Okay. And then of course, top 5 of the week. So on you go, Matt.
So number 1 is Swamp Thing. 2 is Tales of the Human Target. 3 is Detective Comics. 4 is Action, and 5 is Robin.
Yeah, pretty similar for me. Number 1, Swamp Thing. Number 2, Tales of the Human Target. Number 3, Detective. Number... wait, hold on. Was it? Aye, Detective, then Robin, and then Action probably, and last. Yeah, okay. So there you go. There's this week's books. So yeah, I will now tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics. We have a week 5 next week, so good week to do some Patreon books. Actually, that's convenient for me.
It works out, right?
But we have the Flash 2022 annual. But you know what? I'm not going to say 2022 for all these. I'm just going to say annual. Okay, you know it's the 2022 because we're in 2022. All right. So we get the Flash annual. We have the Harley Quinn annual. We have the Wonder Girl annual, which I would love to be excited to check out, but I feel like it's probably going to tie into the stuff that I already dropped.
I'm gonna look real quick because it's got Adriana Mello on art, and it's Douglas Marquez and Joelle Jones on the writing. But it says, after an unforgettable first visit to Themyscira, Yara Flora has been crowned Wonder Girl, and her Escacita tribe accepted into the Amazon sisterhood. So what now? As the jungles of Brazil beckon our heroes home. It kind
of sounds like just a continuation. Her next issue, effectively, from the Joelle Jones series.
Well, it also says you won't want to miss this oversized issue packed with never before seen stories about the mysterious new tribe and their most famous member. So it almost feels like we're gonna get a couple things going on about the Escacita. If I have time, I might read this because I do like Yara a lot. She's a great character, so we'll see.
Anyway, we got Sandman Universe Nightmare Country issue 5. We have Superman World Apocalypse issue 1, which is the finale to the World War saga. So obviously that's kind of the big thing for next week. There's Harley Quinn, the animated series, The Real Sidekicks of New Gotham Special issue 1. So that's basically an annual for that Eat Bang Kill Tour book that was coming out. Although it's even bigger than an annual. It's $10, so it's a meaty one. And then they got DC Saved by the Belle Reve issue 1. You know what? It's a $10 anthology book, which we don't usually read unless it's a special anniversary issue or something. I'm almost tempted because that title is just so good.
So it's an 80-pager. There's, as of counting on the writing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's 10 writers credited. But they include Tomasi, Brandon Thomas, Becky Cloonan, Tim Seeley, Franco Orlani, Brendan Fletcher, Dave Welgiaz, Dan Waters. So, yeah, this might be something to read. There's a Tiny Titan story by Art Balthazar. So,
I admit, it's not high priority. For me, like, I can tell you that I'm reading Warworld Apocalypse, The Flash, and after that, my Patreon books. So I guess I might read the Saved by the Bell Reeve or the Wonder Girl book, whatever one strikes my fancy more. But yeah, if we were going to bring in some non-DC books, next week's exactly the sort of week that would be suitable for it. So by all means, do give us some feedback on that thought at DC Comics Podcast on Twitters or elsewhere if you like. But I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. Thank you very much to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Boardnow, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Tradesman, and Alison M. Fordyce. They're the Mail Fuzz Patreon producers. Obviously, Mail Fuzz is kind of the umbrella of which Comics from the Multiverse comes under. We have two other YouTube channels that are, a lot of our main content goes on, which is Mail Fuzz TV and Mail Fuzz Movies. So if you want movie podcasts and TV episode reviews and things like that, go and have a look at all those things. Some of which is available as an audio podcast feed as well, the movie stuff in particular. So go and have a look see at that. But otherwise, you can support everything by liking, subscribing, dinging the bell on YouTube, or of course rating us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from. Give us a 5-star review, always helps out. And of course, you can I'm out of things to promote. I think I ran out. I think I set up another one. I didn't have any left. But yes, but as always, just share us around and enjoy the show. Yep. But that has been episode 320 of Comics from the Multiverse. You can, of course, look forward to episode 321 next week. And I don't think Connor will be back because I'm pretty sure his days off next week don't even get close to being one of the days that it could be on this show. But he will be back eventually. Like, it will happen. What I'm curious about is he been keeping up with the books, or is he just leaving himself a list of like a ridiculous number of books to catch up on for the week that he's going to be back on the show? Is he going to read like 50 comics in 1 week? Because he's done that before. I know what he's like.
That's a very Connor thing to do. Yeah,
he does do that. So we'll see. But that is the show. That is everything. So we'll be back next week with some shenanigans for a weird week 5, and we'll see how things shape up. But that is Comics from the Multiverse. Thank you very much once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.